Check this out. I got my Access database here and I've connected to it using my Streamlit app that I was showing you guys in a previous episode, except this time around we can edit our data, which is something that we could not do before. So I can go in and change these cities and postal codes that are on my contact table here, and I can go down to the bottom here and click update, and it tells me record updated, and now it is updated in my system. If I choose a different entry and go back, you can see that the change is there. Let's go check it out. I'm your host, Sean MacKenzie. Thank you for joining once again on my channel on data engineering. In this episode, we go back to our Microsoft Access on the web playlist, and we're going to take a look at how to do an edit screen. Now, lots of you guys have asked me, how can I do an edit screen once I've got my Access database online on the web? Now, in previous episodes, we showed how to create a simple data entry interface connecting to Access, and also how to do a web report using Access. And we also showed how to extend that out onto the internet so that our users can do some simple data entry. In this episode, we're taking it one step further, and we're going to get a little bit more involved, and we're going to do an edit screen where we can choose one of our records from a drop-down and then edit that data and have it updated in our Microsoft Access database. Let's get to it. Looking for more cool topics like these? Make sure to check out my Patreon. The link is in the description. Okay guys, this is a pretty fun one today. We are going to blast through. Here's our directory that we had when we stopped last time. Has our database in it, and we've got our data entry script, and that was the one that we ran with Streamlit. And we've also got one version and another version of starting the ngrok reverse proxy, which allows web traffic to go to your new website that you're creating. And we have a zip file there that we put online. You can download that one off of my download site. The link is in the description there. And this is our data file here. This is our Microsoft Access database. It's got one table in it with 4 contacts. We didn't do any data validation or anything. We've got these 4 records here. Very simple. That's what we're going to work with today. We're going to edit some of those records, but we are going to do that through our web browser, and that's how we're going to get started here. And so what we're going to look at first is these are all the little scripts that we were working with in the last couple episodes. The 2 main ones are these 2 here. The first one was a report demo that we did that just sort of displayed a grid, like a table report online that you could filter, and this script was the data entry script. And we are actually going to take a big chunk of this data entry script because editing is very similar to adding, and so we are going to actually copy a bunch of this. It's going to make our life a lot easier, and we'll grab all these lines all the way down to line 17. Like I said, you can download this off of my download site, so if you want to copy this, you can too. And we'll start a new script here in Notepad++, just file new, and then we'll change the language to Python. Next, we can paste in the code that we took from the other script there, and we can do that by just right-click paste, or you can put your cursor in and go Control-V, like I did just there, and then you've got the start of your script for editing. Go ahead and click Save, and you can save it as whatever name that you would like there, and you can see I saved mine as C dev, and then into the folders there, and I called it stdataedit.py. And this script is a Python script that will run in Streamlit. So we installed Streamlit in a previous episode, and we also did installation of some other items like the PyODBC and SQL Alchemy. And so make sure that you catch up on those episodes. And it started with add me, but we are gonna do edit me. And as you can see, we used st.title there. That is using Streamlit, and so that's gonna put the first words on our page, on our web page. It'll say edit me in big title font, And that's really all we have right now, so why don't we try to put something else on here before we sort of get started, before we test it out. So we're going to create a combo box, or a select box as it's known in Streamlit, combo box in Microsoft Access. And what we're going to do is we're going to load up some entries into a combo box here. And so we'll concatenate the last name, the first name, and the email into the sort of drop down list that we get there. And that's going to be select from. We'll call that select from. So we'll do select last name, ampersand, comma, first name, and then we'll do the squiggly line there and the email address and as select from, and then we'll continue our string on the next row there, or next line, and we'll do from TBL contact, order by last name, first name. And there you go. That's our concatenation, last name, first name, email. And that's going to give us at least something that we can see in the drop down. We'll order it by last name, and we're good to go there. Now, in order to do our selection for this particular item, we're going to use pandas. And so pandas is something that allows us to get, you can think of it as record sets in memory if you're coming from Microsoft Access. Pandas allows you to get a record set in memory and do all kinds of things with it, just like you would do with a VBA record set, although pandas does many, many more things. So we'll do import pandas as PD, and if when you run this, if you get an error saying pandas is not there, you can do the pip install pandas command from your command line. Next, we'll load up a data frame, which I'm calling CBO data. It's a data frame, and we'll load that by using PD, which is our pandas reference there. So we'll say pd.readSQL, and then we'll put in the SQL string and the engine that we created, which is the engine that talks to Microsoft Access. And so we installed that engine in the previous episode when we got SQL Alchemy-Access, and it is a fantastic SQL Alchemy library. Allows us to connect with Microsoft Access and do lots of different things. And so next what we're going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of a shortcut here. So all I'm doing here is I'm loading in a record into the data frame that came back, and I'm saying that the record, the value of it is select. That's all I'm doing there with that. And then -1 just means I'm putting it at the very beginning of the data frame, but we actually want to have the data frame index start with 0, not -1. And so what we're going to do is here we'll do CBO data index is equal to the index +1. That'll shift everything down, and now we have at the top of our list a selection, which can, we can use it to tell if somebody selected a real person or not. And so that's that -1 there, and that's why we're going to do that index and index +1. That just allows us to put the selection in there. And then what we can do is we can say, the data frame for CBO data frame, we'll sort that we'll sort the index basically to make sure that it's in the right place. The select is at the very top, and that's going to show in our drop-down list our combo box, or select box as it's called in Streamlit. And the next thing we're going to do is create that select box. The drop-down list that we'll see on the web page there, you can see I'm referencing ST, and that's the reference for Streamlit. So at this point I'm saying the selected value, so selected equals the st.select box, and then we can give it a tag. You're allowed to give it a tag, so we'll say select a record. You can put whatever you want in there, and then we'll put in the data, the CBO data, which is the data frame that we got, which is a pandas data frame, and that is something that we can put in there as a sort of record source. If you come from Access, that'll be the record source for that one. Okay, so we have a select box and we've got some text at the top. Why don't we try this out and see how far we got? So let's save that. You can do a Control S, or you can click on the button on the toolbar there, the save button, and then open a command window. That'll be your cmd.exe. You can type that into the search on your taskbar, and it should come up with an option for you to open a window that looks like this one. And then you can do change directory, that's CD there. So we're going to change directory to wherever our database is, and then we'll go on the next line, we'll go Streamlit run, and then the name of our script. That's all we have to do. So we'll go Streamlit run stdataedit.py, and we should have our browser pop up. Fantastic. If we don't get any errors, look at that. We've got our record there, select a record, and it is populated. That's fantastic. So now you can see we've got data out of our Microsoft Access database, and we've got those ones there, and you can see Streamlit is now running in this command window here, and it's available by the browser. So we don't have to close that command window. We'll minimize that, and we'll minimize the browser, because we don't have to close the browser either. We can just make code changes now, and we can hit save, and then we can just refresh it in the browser. And so that's a really neat thing about Streamlit. So now what we can do is we can say, if what the user selected is equal to that select selection, well, we don't want to give any first name or last name fields or anything like that, because they didn't select anything yet. So instead we'll just say st.write, please make a selection, and that will totally bypass having those controls on the screen. And then if they didn't choose the selection, then we can do something different, and in this one we're going to load a bunch of controls. So what we could do is we could say, just to test it out, we could say st.write, you selected one, just before we really put the controls in. Let's just see if we broke anything yet. So let's save that. Now we've got our if statement. If they selected select, then tell them make a selection. Otherwise, you selected one. And then we can save that. We already saved. And now we can pull up our browser. And just like I said before, we just need to refresh our browser. We don't have to restart anything. We can just go refresh. And this makes it very nice and fast for development. So you'll notice that I can now just change the code and see what it looks like. Oh, you selected one, right? And then if I select, it says please make a selection. So now we have two different paths, or two different streams, as the case may be, of code. And now you can see, I don't know if that's why it's called Streamlit, but you can see that now we're going down a different stream. If we did select something, we're going to load different controls on the page. And for this example, we are going to use email as our sort of like key. Lots of places use email as your identifier. So we'll say email equals selected. Remember, that's the value we got when they selected from the select box. And we're just going to split that, very similar to the split that we use in VBA, if you're using VBA. And we're going to grab the first between 0 and 1, because it's zero-based counting, so that's the second column, and that gets us the email address that was in there. So let's go ahead and try that. So we'll hit refresh on that. We can grab a value here, and now we can see, okay, we have data coming back, so that's pretty cool. So as you can see, we can select at will and get the information that's in there, and that enter one doesn't actually have an email address in it, but it does have the word enter in there, and so that's going to give us that one. Now we can add validation and things. We can add lots of different validation in our Python code if we want to. Today I'm not really focusing on that. We're just sort of getting this working. So there we go. We've got our email is equal to the value that was selected in the drop down box there. We grab part of that value, and now what we can do is we can sort of get our selection string here, our SQL string, and we can select whoever it is that we picked. by finding their data by their email address. And so there we go. So we can do our select first name, last name, address, city, and we'll also grab the region and the postal zip code, and we'll get the country and the email, and those are all the fields we really want there. So then we can do from TBL contact, and then we can say where the email address, in this case the column is called email, equals, and then we're going to use the :em. That's going to be the name of our parameter. So there's our selections, and we've got a parameter at the end. Very important to pay attention to that, because you do not want to use dynamic SQL when you've got internet facing data systems. We want to make sure that we use a parameterized query here, and so we're going to do that now. And so our parameters are very simple because there's only one. So we're going to make a dictionary here, and that's going to be with the EM in there as the name, and the value is the email address. Very simple, and that's how you build a dictionary in Python, a single item with a single item in it. Okay, next what we can do is we can do contact is going to equal pd.readSQL, and then we'll put in the SQL, the engine, and then we're going to put in a named parameter there, params equals params. That's the same name as I gave my variable there, and we have to use the params equals params instead of just sticking it in, because the parameters are actually not the next available argument for read SQL, and so we're going to skip a bunch of parameters there, and we're going to just put in our params equals params for our parameters. From there, what we can do is we're going to build some tuples here, which are just a bunch of values for our drop-down lists that are in, when you choose your region or your country. In our previous episode, we put those directly in line with our functions, but in this episode we're going to make them separately, and there's a reason for that. You'll see in here in a minute. But we've got our region list and our countries list, which are tuples, and you'll see how those get used here just in a moment. And then what we'll do is we're going to get the first row of our contact data frame, because that data frame with read-SQL could have 100 contacts in it. We did a very specific selection, and it only has one record, which is the 0 record in this case. So we're going to get that iLoc in there, and we're going to load that CT for contact row, and that's going to allow us to use that. Now, some of these variable names I'm making very short, and there's a reason for that, which you'll see here in a minute. Next, we're going to go back to our stdataEntry script, because we're going to copy and paste some more code out of there, because there is actually a lot of useful reusable code here. And all of these variables that get loaded from input boxes and select boxes, well, the same ones we used last time will be the ones that we use this time, because we're just editing the record. And so what we can do is we can paste those into our script here. You can select it, and I'll hit tab and it'll move them all over. Hit save, I guess we'll save it here. And now we've got these short variables here, and they have very short names. I'm using short names just because we will have to put them into our parameters, and it cuts down on a lot of typing there. So you can see these are the default values. So you can remember when we did adding, we just put enter in there. But now what we're going to do is we're going to take values that we got from our drop-down selection. So now we have a full record with a bunch of values in it. So of course we want to load our default sort of values for each of the controls with the actual value from the database. So that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to say the contact first name, we'll put that in when this text input gets loaded, and then on the next one we'll do last name for this particular text box, and you can see that the 255 size limit is on there as well. We can put in the contact address in very much similar way. and the city will be exactly the same. So very easy. So this time we're not making a blank form to enter into. This time we're making a form that has the values loaded. And you can build a similar form to this in Access. It's called an unbound form, where you load up the values but you don't keep the record set open. And so here's our regions as we did it the first time, but we made a variable with the same thing in it this time, so we're just going to put that variable in, the regions variable. And then when we load the default value for this, now we can say, well, we're going to take the regions, the index of that, which has the, matches the value that's in the record that we pulled, because we're going to do regions.index, and if we put in the value, it'll return the index, and that's what you need to do if you want to open that select box to a particular selection, and that's what we're doing here. So that's what that does, the regions.index, and then the next one we're going to get here is our contact postal zip code, so we'll put postal zip in there, and that's going to load that up with the contact records postal zip. And then we've got the same thing here. We got our country list, and last time we did it like this because we didn't actually have any selections in there, but now we're going to load that countries variable, and we'll do the same thing with the index. We want the select box to be loaded with the value selected that is selected for this record in the database. And so we'll do countries.index, we'll put CT country in there, and that's going to load that one with the right value. And that's what we want to see for our country selection there. Moving on, our email address will be the same as the others. We'll just go CT and we'll change that to email. Now we're going to load the default value with the email address that's on the record. And for this particular one, we actually want to disable it, but we'll do that in a moment here. Let's try it out. So it's already running, like I said, so now we can just hit refresh and we can check it out. We can open, oh, it looks like it loaded. There we go. So we chose John Doe here, and it looks like all of his information got loaded correctly. And we want to make this, because we're using that as a key, we're going to disable that one in a moment. Maybe you could have another process for updating that. Or you could use the keys in the table, perhaps, the primary key. We generally choose not to show an auto number key to the user, but you could find another way to deal with that if they needed to update that. So let's go ahead and we'll put comma disabled equals true, and that's going to add that argument in there for the text input. And if we pull up our browser again and hit refresh, okay, let's go ahead and select one, and we should have a disabled. Now this is disabled, so that's what we want to see there. Now we can go ahead and we can change things in the other ones, but we can't change it in the email field. If I try to, I cannot change it, and that's what we want to see there. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste some more of our coding from the other script. We'll go ahead and open up that script. That's the stdateentry.py script, and we're going to grab the rest of this here because our script is going to be very similar but with just a few changes. And so we're going to grab this entire thing here all the way down to the end after line 25 there, all the way down to line 45, and we're going to copy that because we can reuse this code. It has a dictionary for parameters which we can use, and it has all the same field names and everything, and so we can just paste that into our current script, and then we're going to do the same thing. We'll select it all, hit the tab key, and that's going to indent it just the way that we need it. Remember that indenting is quite important with Python, so we have to have it indented correctly, and there we go. So we've got our st.button there, and instead of save we'll put update, and because we're going to have an update button, not a save button, and we'll go ahead and change our SQL string now. So let's go ahead and do that. We've got an insert statement now, and almost all of this stuff will be the same, So we don't actually need to really change this except for maybe the text coming out of it. So now we can say you've been updated instead of added, and we can also click to update on that other line there. So we could say record updated, and then we could say click to update record or something along those lines, and that's gonna give us a different look than what we had when we were just adding records, and those messages are more in line with what we want to do there. So let's grab this SQL statement here. We're going to delete that because we are going to create an update statement as opposed to an insert statement, because an update statement is what we need here. And so in order to do that, we'll put in update TBL contact. That's the table we have in Access there. We're going to say set first name equal to and then :FN. Now you can see why I'm using those short variable names. So we'll do first name equal to :FN, last name equal to :LN. So let's go ahead and put that one in there. And then as you would expect, we would put in address equal to :AD, which is the address variable there. And we'll do city equal to CI, and that'll give us a nice city parameter on there. And then we'll do region equal to RE, :RE there. That's going to give us the parameter for region. And then postal zip equal to :PO, and then country equal to :CO. And of course we'll also put in where the email is equal to :EM, and so that gives us that update statement setting. In table contact, we're going to set first name, last name, address, city, region, postal code, country, where the email address is equal to that. Now you could also do where the contact ID equals, if you put the contact ID into the drop down instead. That's something you could do, or you could have an employee number or contact code or something like that, but we're using email today, so there we go. And then we can do the same thing with engine as a connection. We can do result equals connection.execute and then SQL and our parameters. We have to make sure we put that commit on there, or it will not save it. And I think we're good to go. We can hit save on that. Hopefully it didn't break anything here. So in order to make this go, we can actually just start using it, but I'll hit refresh on here, and then we'll choose one from the drop down. So this will get the new code as soon as we start using the Streamlit application in the browser here. And so let's go ahead and make some changes. So we'll call him John Masters instead of John Doe. So we figured out his last name. He's no longer Doe, he is Masters. And let's go ahead and change that postal zip code there as well. We'll put a 9 on that, and then we'll hit our update button. It tells us record updated. And so that sort of sequence with the button, we explained how that works in the previous video. And let's go check our Access database. So now we got John Masters as contact ID 3. His postal zip has a 9 on the end of it now instead of what was there before. That's awesome. And that is exactly what we want to see there. You can also try this out in other browsers. We'll try this in our Firefox browser as well. We can just type in localhost 8501, and you can see it looks a tiny bit different because of the way that the styles and things are applied in Firefox, but it works exactly the same way. We can choose that enter record there. That one seems to bring up that data. We can choose our info at MacKenzie.com or John Masters, and you can see that those records come up nicely in our form here, and we can do things like change an address. We can say 555 somewhere street, and we can put that address in, say, Prince George, BC, which is right in the middle of the province there, and some other postal code. I have no idea what the postal code is there, but I'll just make one up. And there we go. So now we've got some different entries there. We can scroll down and we can hit update again, and we get record updated, and that's what we want to see there. And say if we went off of that record and loaded a different one, say this John Masters one, we go back to Jim Harris again, you can see those new entries are saved in there. The update was successful, and that works awesome. So that's how a simple update can work for you using Streamlit on Microsoft Access. Make sure that you check out my Patreon, where I will be doing episodes on things like how to do a login page and how to use other controls. And that's how you can do web edits on your Microsoft Access database. Looking for more resources for your project? Make sure to check out the additional links in the description.